Excuse me. Hey! Hey!
If you want to just add those in, we can send them all over.
We are MakilalaTV, the first Filipino-American TV talk show in the New York metro area. Get to know us as we talk to the community leaders, innovators, advocates, and emerging artists who affect Filipino-American life.
Welcome to Makilala. My name is Cristina Pastor. In 1999, two young men wearing black trench coats rained shots on a school library in Colorado. 13 people died in what is now known as the Columbine Massacre. America was rocked to its core by the horrific, cold-blooded shooting. Many were angry, anti-gun advocates protested, politicians vowed to do something, and yet we've seen more serious incidents of gun violence in the years to come. Virginia Tech, 32 dead. Sandy Hook, 21 children, 6 teachers dead. Pulse nightclub, 49 dead. And just last month, Las Vegas concert, 58 dead. Nearly 20 years after Columbine, the killings continue. The casualty toll is rising, and Americans are coming around to the idea that they will have to get used to horrific mass murders around them. Gun rights advocates say that people and not guns are the ones who kill. They also point to the Second Amendment, which guarantees for Americans the right to own guns. Today, our guests will help us make sense of why our country is at the grip of gun violence. Cheryl Quinio-Blodgett is a political analyst and the president of Keenyo Consultants, a political and business management consulting firm. Erwin de Leon is a policy researcher and academic. He worked for many years as a research associate at the Urban Institute in Washington, D.C. And our guest co-host is a good friend and fellow journalist, Len Almadine Thornhill. She is an editor at China Global Television Network in Washington, D.C. My co-hosts, Jan Fuhrer and Rachel Ocampo, will be joining us in our next episode. Welcome to Makilala.
Thank you.
So let me just tell you that I was looking for a Filipino gun owner, and the two people that I saw, that I met, didn't want to come on television. I wonder why. And I asked one of them, why do you have to own a gun? And one of them said that, you know, I have 2 daughters and I wanted to protect them. Cheryl, is that good enough reason to buy guns?
I think that our Second Amendment protects us in order to protect our home. Many states throughout the United States don't have a police department near them. So owning a gun is their only defense. They can't call 911 because it may not come for an hour.
Well, this person lives in Virginia, which is known for its very lenient gun ownership rules, I think, right?
Right, right, that's correct.
So, Erwin.
Well, I think what we have to figure out, what do we mean by guns, right? And I think when we talk about gun control or about this issue, we just conflate all the different guns. You've got handguns, you've got long guns, shotguns, and some other pistols, then you've got semi-automatics. So there's a wide range of weaponry that we're talking about. And actually, even if you look at the laws within the states and within the federal government, they're talking about different guns. So I think we have to differentiate, because the whole argument of being able to protect yourself, that totally makes sense. I have no argument again. I'm fine with that. But my question is, why do you need assault weapons or bump stocks or whatever else to protect yourself? Right? Because another argument would be for hunting. Really? Do you need an assault weapon to kill a deer?
And if you need an assault rifle to kill a deer, you're not a very good hunter.
Exactly. Right.
I think gun ownership is okay to some people or to many people, depending on what research you're using, as long as the gun does not fall into the wrong hands, like people with mental issues or people who have anger management issues maybe. So how do you determine that?
And President Obama did put an executive order last year to allow law enforcement to look at Social Security records to find out who has been obtaining mental health services. However, both the NRA and the ACLU were against this executive order.
Why?
Because it does infringe on somebody's health protections, that they should be able to seek mental health regardless of
Yeah,
backlash.
but if they're owning a gun, if they're buying a gun, Len, right? They should not. They should declare that. Isn't that?
But that doesn't really, that argument doesn't play with, for instance, what happened in Sandy Hook. The boy, the young man did not own the gun. It was the mother.
It was the mother
It
who
was in
owned
the
it, yeah,
house.
yeah.
So where do you then go from there? How do you then protect? Are you now saying anybody in your family that has some sort of mental issues or health issue, you cannot now then buy a gun because my son or my stepson?
Well, in some countries, that's what's happening. Like if you look in Japan, they're very strict about who can own a gun, and they do look at the psychological background of not just the gun owner, but those around them. But even bringing that up, Len, it sort of it brings up the question, it's like the availability of guns,
Yeah.
right? It's sort of, and I think that's what the argument is for those who are against gun, or
Yeah.
are for gun control.
Why is it so easy to buy
Right.
one? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
uh,
hard to buy one because you do need to apply for a permit and
Yeah,
there's
but
a
this,
lot of
this gun owner
paperwork.
Is
that
it
I
though?
spoke to, it was very easy for him to buy guns. He just waited for something like 30, 40 minutes
Yeah.
while his background check was ongoing. He was there in the store,
Right.
and then he got it.
But you're just talking about stores, because the thing is, you do have the background check if you're going to stores, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you're going to gun shows,
Gun shows,
and if
yeah.
it's like a sale from person to person, forget about it.
Or
And
on
online,
eBay,
right,
you
on
can do it
eBay,
80.
right.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, you can drive in some Walmarts, I mean, in Virginia.
Correct.
Because when you used to live in D.C., and it's out there.
Right.
So you've got the patchwork quilt of different laws, so one could easily buy a gun in Virginia and drive it to New York, even if that's illegal. But that's another
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you were saying something earlier before you got made up that you own a gun.
Yes.
Tell us more about
So
how you made that decision.
So my husband and I decided to purchase a 9mm 45 caliber guns to just for fun, as a hobby, to shoot at a shooting range. Not really for protection, because at home it's under lock and key, the bullets are not in the gun, and it's in a case that you can't get to very easily. Really, to protect ourselves,
Yeah.
we call 911.
So how many do you have?
We have 2 guns.
So one for you and one for your husband.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And your kids know about this?
Yes, they do. And they've shot with guns as well. They're both in the military, so they need to know how to use a gun.
When did you own this? I mean, was it easy for you to buy it?
It was actually my husband who purchased the
okay,
guns
yeah.
back in 1990. So
And he got
it was very
from,
easy.
He got it from a store?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about the controversy?
Well, the controversy, if you look at Las Vegas, the Las Vegas shooting, using mental health isn't always an indicator, because this man had no background of mental health history.
That's right.
And he was able to get guns in various states. He was an avid hunter in Alaska.
That's right.
So it was just one day, who knows? He was killed, unfortunately, before we could understand why.
That's right.
And I think it's the understanding of why that people still say it's people who shoot, not the guns. The guns are not the problem. It's the people that are the
But
problem.
if they don't have the tools to kill, though,
Right.
right? I mean, I see the argument, but then again, if you don't have it,
And then you have the
Right.
gun owners who
Right.
said this tragedy in New York a couple days ago
Yeah.
on
Right.
Halloween, where what are you going to do? You go into outlawed cars now
Right.
because some guy decided to run down people with a car.
fair enough, but there are also different kinds of guns. Like personally, just for the record, I'm not against handguns.
Right.
I don't see the value, the reasoning behind having to own very powerful weapons. And I think it also people like, what's so wrong with regulations, right?
Right.
I mean, just there are traffic regulations, there what have you, of course. Will there always be one person that will go through it? Absolutely.
Right.
But we still have to have safeguards against that, right?
Absolutely.
It's like when you go back to cars. There was a time when people didn't have to buckle their seatbelts.
Right.
But at one point, we all agreed as a society that it's helpful.
Yeah.
But there's a cost to not having that. So, and just for the record, his history, guns have been regulated, right? During the Al Capone era, up to the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's never been again. Regulations are okay. And even if you look at the case, the Supreme Court case from 2008, Scalia himself, this is against handguns in Washington, D.C. Okay, they overruled D.C. and said, no, people have a right to have guns, handguns, but not more dangerous weapons. So again, I go back to the point of just having, to look at the nuance, look at the different kinds of weapons we're talking about.
But the other argument is how much regulation are we talking about here? Right now you're saying, okay, no bump stocks, okay, no automatic weapons, no semi-automatic. And then somebody down the line will use the handgun that he owns legally.
Right.
He doesn't have any mental health issue, and then ended up, hurting a lot of people. Do we then go back then and do more regulation? I mean, that's another argument,
Well, then
right?
you also have the children who have killed more
Right.
people than gang
Correct.
members because they take out their parents' guns and they shoot themselves. And these are just handguns, not assault rifles.
These are
So when we're talking about regulation, the other argument is, when do we stop regulating our
that goes for that goes for anything, right?
Right.
Regulating food to regulating whatever. The problem is when people are just, use that argument. It's a slippery slope, but you need regulation. The reality, whether it's the economy, whether it's the environment, whether it's our food, whether it's our guns, it's part of it, right? But as a society, and the way we're set up, I highly doubt it'll get to a point where it's going to be banned totally.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Well, it's our
Yeah.
Second Amendment Constitution.
Well.
It's in our Constitution
Right.
to hold that anyone is able to own and
But
have
it's
a
how you
handgun.
interpret the
Yes.
Second Amendment.
Yeah, how do you
again,
interpret
right?
the Second Amendment?
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you think about it, the Second Amendment was created when the technology of a gun was sticking powder in a musket
Right.
and packing it and then lighting the gun
Right.
Yeah.
so that it could shoot. And you can take off one shot at a time. And it took about 10 to 15 minutes to actually load a gun. Now, with the
It's a
technology that it is today.
Is there a need to amend? I mean, from a legal point of view,
I do.
constitutional point of view.
I do. I mean, like, I believe I was saying this earlier, that it is easier for women to lose their rights because there is no ratification in the Constitution than it is to lose your right to own a firearm because it is in the Constitution.
But can I just go back to
Okay,
that, though?
sure.
Because the Second Amendment, right? The language is so vague. It was
Yeah.
written centuries ago for at a certain time. If you look at it, like, there are 4 phrases. It alludes to the militia, comma, then there's another phrase, and then we're talking about the right of people. But then again, it's as with anything with the Constitution. Do we treat it as a static document or something organic that changes? It is a totally different time. We're talking a time when the colonies had to protect themselves. So that's why they had militias. The guns were only owned by white men. They had to have the guns to be part of the militia. So it's so it's not clear. Even the Supreme Court itself is still arguing.
Correct.
What
And
what is the right to what weapons?
And the current
Right.
government
Yeah.
were governors of England, of the country of England.
Right.
So the lawmakers that were currently in power was England, and our colonists and our forefathers were trying to write in the Constitution that we should be able to bear arms
Correct.
against these tyrannists.
Right.
How critical is the role of the NRA? Are they being unfairly blamed, or do they
Well,
deserve the blame
Blame for what?
for the gun violence that we see around us?
No,
because they control Congress.
The NRA has
yeah.
a very simple message. It is the Second Amendment Constitution. It is your right to own firearms. And they have I guess 30% of the American population is a member of the NRA.
That's correct.
And very few dollars of their money, of the membership that goes to the NRA, is used for lobbying. The rest of the money that's coming from lobbying is coming from gun technology corporations that are flooding the NRA with money and donations so that they can be the lobbyists on the Hill to protect their investment.
You
which
said something
are
about
guns.
after Sandy Hook, there was a large donation to the NRA that happened because people were worried that their guns might be taken away from them,
Right.
and they wanted the NRA to support their right to own them.
Yes, anytime there is a gun violence incident, the stock exchange explodes with investors to guns because they know that scared Americans are going out to make sure that they're going to get that last gun before it is outlawed,
Right.
which will never happen.
Do you have any information on how many Americans actually own guns?
Only 30% of Americans
30%
own guns.
But here's the thing, though. The reality is who actually lobbies, right? The government, the federal government. Statistics are that actually survey data actually shows that people who own guns are more likely to contact Congress than those who don't own guns or those who are against guns.
Why would they contact Congress?
Well, because they're motivated.
Oh, they're
They're motivated. And I think, it's not just the NRA that's behind this. I think, this is a great democracy, and we really have have a stake in it, and we also determine where it goes. So just the mere fact, if their folks are against guns, well, they have to get off their asses and call their Congress people, right? But the point is the data shows that they're more likely not to do anything, right? It's folks who are gun owners are more passionate about this because like a majority of them think about, it's about freedom. It's about their freedom.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
own,
that's right.
to own.
It came out in a Pew Research study that says,
74?
yeah, most gun owners, they believe that owning a firearm is tied to their sense of personal freedom.
Yeah.
And the biggest motivation for owning a gun is for protection.
Correct.
Just
Yeah.
like this Filipino gun owner that I spoke
Yeah.
to. He wanted to protect his 2 daughters. That's
But for
right.
those who you say, if you are against owning a gun, the statistics is not a lot of Americans against owning a gun, right? They're split, isn't it?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know majority of Americans are for some form of gun control.
Of gun control.
Some form
Yeah.
of regulation. I think, look, I think the reality is if you ask a lot of Americans, I still go back to that, what kind of weapon are we talking about? So Americans are, I think if we just talk about handguns, we wouldn't be having this conversation, frankly.
But if the majority of Americans are against or are for some sort of
I think it's 50-50.
regulation,
I think it's
Yeah.
50-50.
It's
according
about
to-
51%.
why
Yeah.
hasn't
Yeah.
our
Yes.
politicians, you've worked in political scene for many years, why aren't politicians more vocal, or even the local politicians? If I know half of my constituents are for some form of regulation, why aren't they speaking up?
Even gun owners look at some sort of regulation. Even when I do polls on Facebook, there are many people that want some sort of regulation on guns. People with mental health
Yeah,
issues should
that's the
not
biggest,
own
yeah.
a gun. People with domestic violence records should not own a
not,
gun.
yeah.
And there are many gun regulations that are being moved forward on a state-by-state level. However,
Why don't they move ahead and get passed?
Well, they're assuming politicians listen to their constituents. I mean, the reality is politicians listen to who give them the money.
correct.
And also,
Which
they're
is
always-
the NRA
well,
and the
NRA
other
and
lobbying
other
groups.
interests. And
Other
then the
interests,
reality
yeah.
is, it's the way our political system is set up. You get elected, and now with the cycle, 2 years in, you're already thinking of getting
Yeah,
reelected,
yes.
and Congress is every shorter term. So I think the reality is, nothing's going to happen in Congress, right?
And as soon as you get elected in, you're
Yeah.
already fundraising
Correct,
the
for
day
the next
that
cycle.
yes.
Yeah.
So,
So
it's
is the message then, for people for those who want it to be changed, give some money? I mean, is it something like
it's not as easy
No.
as that because the normal constituent doesn't have the money that corporate gun technology companies have. They'll never come up to that level.
But what they can
the
do,
pro-gun-
though, is to act.
I have
Yeah.
a question. The pro-gun lobby, not the NRA, the regular folks who own guns, they're not as vocal, are
The
they?
gun law. No, I mean,
Regular citizens who own guns,
no,
are
that's
they?
what I'm saying. They're the ones who are more likely to talk.
Yes, they
and
will
actually, they're the
call.
ones who are going to call Congress.
But they're not out there protesting, are they?
No.
No, but
Yeah.
but see, it's not just a protest. You know what's effective aside from giving money? This goes for any issue. Call your congressman.
Right.
Because they might look at the money, but they also look at how many people actually call.
Right.
They listen. But the problem is those, and I say this in general, those on the left on a number of issues,
Yeah.
they need to move more. They have to work more to actually call, to show up. Right? So it won't change. The reality won't change. But if wherever you fall on this, you need to act,
That's right.
right?
Len, you said that you also own a gun?
Do I? We did. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
I do own 2 guns
Right now?
Yeah. Yes, we bought it. But the same with Cheryl. Initially we bought it for protection. We lived in a not very nice neighborhood back then, and we were in Texas, and it was easy. It was fairly easy. They did the background check within a couple of hours. Here you go.
Was
You
it
know,
expensive?
It wasn't back then. A couple of $100s for a nice handgun. But we bought it for protection. I've never fired it.
Do you still
didn't.
have it?
I still have it.
Were you able to? Oh, you did not even get to use it?
No, I've never even held it. My husband held it maybe twice, and it's the same as Cheryl's. It's in a safe. Bullets are in a different location. If you ask me, would I buy it now? Am I against buying a handgun? No. Would I buy it now? Probably not.
Do your kids are your kids aware that there's handguns in the house?
Yes,
Okay.
they are, and they're afraid of it. So they're not. They don't even know where it is. But it is the whole back then, the whole idea of I can buy a gun. I can protect myself. It went a long way. That I can protect myself and will not be a victim.
And it gives people security.
It gives
that
people
they
security,
are able to have that
That's
protection.
right. Yeah. We're trying to understand that now. So it's not as black and white as some people make it out to be.
Very
It's not.
difficult.
It's
Yeah.
a very complicated issue, and you just can't have either or.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's why I've been saying you really have to try to understand it, peel it apart. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Cheryl, Erwin, and Len, for a most enlightening discussion. We have a long way to go, and it appears politicians alone cannot make the problem go away. Society is up against very powerful corporate interests, as well as regular citizens who donate small amounts to support the gun lobby. Being angry has become a voice in the wilderness. Thank you for watching Makilala. But before we close, we have a guest performer, Dr. Imelda Cruz Banting. She's a singing doctor, a physiatrist from East Chester, New York. Medicine may be her bread and butter, but music will always be her first love. Here's Doc Imet singing her original composition, Wag Matakot, or Don't Be Afraid.
Unang beses tayo nagkita, kumislap ang aking mga mata. Napangiti ako't lumapit ka, nag-usap tayo tapos sa'yo na. Naging tayo, anong saya, araw-araw parang langit sinta. Naging malalim ang nararamdaman, ngunit bigla ka na lang lumamlam. Huwag ka namang matakot, sinta, di ka naman matatali pa. Tuloy lang natin ang pagmamahalan, huwag mong pigilin ang nararamdaman. Kahit na di mo sabihin sa'kin, ramdam ko gusto mo kong lisanin. Kahit anong pilit kong intindihin, di ko kayang mawala ka sa'kin. Wala naman akong maling nagawa para iwan mo na lang bigla. Sige na nga, ako na ang may sala, huwag ka lang maglahong parang bula. Huwag ka namang matakot, sinta, di ka naman matatali pa. Tuloy lang natin ang pagmamahalan, huwag mong pigilin ang nararamdaman. Kung alam ko lang, ikaw ay duwag, pinaglaruan na lang sana Huwag ka namang matakot, sinta. Di ka naman matatali pa. Huwag mo naman akong gawin mukhang tanga. Naiiwan mo na lang basta-basta. Huwag ka namang matakot, sinta. Di ka naman matatali pa. Tuloy lang natin ang pagmamahalan. Lubusin nating nararamdaman.
Excuse me. Hey! Hey!
So if you want to just add those in, we can send them all over.